So I got off the boat, and it just kind of, I mean, everything was just felt like it was on fire. I had several messages from you of Mercedes released a letter, and I immediately went into a panic of, what does that mean? They were about what? What do they feel the need why are we releasing a letter right now? There was PR happening everywhere.
Yeah, it's probably our first PR safety car of the season.
Nicole and Briana are lined up on the grid. It's lights out, and away we go. This week's grid walk.
So, I'll break this all down. So you got on a boat, and Mercedes decided it was time to start a PR recovery. And I think, to set the stage, every single one of these teams and team personnel, especially the people who are very public-facing, with the exception of Gunther Steiner, is heavily media trained. And I tend to... Actually, you know what? I can throw Helmut Marko in there, too, because he just doesn't care and likes to say awful things.
He does. Yeah.
Right. Everyone else, though, if they're saying something to the press, particularly the press during a media weekend, it's generally a planned out, hey, we're going to go this angle. We're going to spin this way. And Mercedes definitely decided during the race weekend that the best thing to do for them is to severely underplay what is going on and talk about how everything is awful. To varying extents. Now, I would argue that I think the fan and public overreacted a little bit, even to their quotes. Like, one of your quotes of the week last week was that Toto said he's so determined he's going to drag Lewis to his 8th championship. Like, to me, that doesn't sound like a team that's, like, on fire. But there was a lot of, like, we're not as close to the front, we're not where we should be, and it was a very coordinated effort of messaging to the public. They definitely realized they went a little too hard. Because the general public, journalists, fans, observers, decided to spin that into everything in Mercedes is on fire, and everyone needs to be fired, they need to bring back old team members, just like light the whole place up, everything is awful. And so Mercedes released a letter to the general public and to their fans, basically telling everyone to calm down! It's okay! And all of this, everything they've been doing, every social media post they've been posting since then, has been very oriented around, oh crap, we created a PR crisis for ourselves. Maybe the best move wasn't to be so extreme about how everything's awful at the Bahrain GP. But to pull this all together, I think an interesting thing to throw to you to talk about is the fact that this is all a strategy and how interesting it is that the choices they're making to recover, essentially their PR safety car, to try to rein in some of the messaging here.
Yeah, first I like to appreciate, as a Mercedes fan, that Mercedes understood that their fans are an important stakeholder in the success of their team. The support, they feel the need that they need to explain themselves to this body of people, which is basically part of their stakeholders, people that invest their time, money, and attention into the team. Now, also that fan base happens to be really adjusted to winning and being very successful. This is the one time where I feel like you and I are kind of lucky of having experience rooting for sports teams that aren't necessarily the most successful, as Briana is wearing an Eagles shirt that has won a Super Bowl, and I have never seen a team win a single thing.
Oh, pain.
But
yeah.
We have a little bit, maybe more experience. But when it comes to being a Mercedes fan, it's not the norm. And I think people were getting very frustrated after last season, obviously. And then coming into this season, expecting lots of upgrades. And instead of everyone talking about Mercedes flying at the speed of light, the conversation has been about Aston Martin. And everyone's like, if they can do, why you no do? Even though very different teams, different resources, whole different situation. But Mercedes fans were getting a little like, ah!
Right.
So Mercedes definitely did at least the smart PR move of bringing fans into the conversation and showing them that they are part of the bigger picture of all of that.
Yeah, F1 is notoriously not fan focused. So it is whether or not you personally liked the letter or enjoy or are liking the choices Mercedes making to like pull back some of the panic. I completely agree with you that it's so crazy important that they've identified that it's important to do this publicly for their fans. Because I think there's a large percentage of F1 teams or F1 generally speaking or the FIA where their solution is call the race promoters, call the sponsors, call their company shareholders, and then they stop there. And they don't realize that the fans generally invested in either the team or the sport are just as important, and particularly in a social media age where, well, I know that the journalists are just as responsible for stoking some of the panic. No, Mercedes is ultimately responsible for not having the correct PR strategy in Bahrain. Shouldn't have gone so hard. Journalists stoked that, but more than all of that, fans panicked. And so I do think this is an interesting, even though it's not my favorite PR crisis to ever happen in F1, I think it's an interesting evolution that Mercedes has identified that and kind of set things ahead. Like how many just like random like image with text over it press releases did we get from Red Bull? Like,
So many.
and that was for worse things. The Mercedes wrote a massive letter to the fans about what's going on. And I just, from, like, we both work in marketing, we've been exposed to PR situations, we're in rooms making decisions like this all the time. If that is not you, I just need you, listener, to know that that letter probably went through 20 hours of revisions. We're probably seeing draft 68 of that letter. The amount of time and energy that went into just releasing that and putting that up on the website was probably so much. And I always equate, in the modern capitalist society we live in, time is money, energy is money. They invested money and time and energy into writing that letter. And for F1, that's a win. Win's a win.
And it wasn't that they just, I think it was, I loved at the beginning of reading, that they're not giving up and they don't want to make any rash decisions. I know a lot of people were like, they just need to scrap the whole thing and start over and show up with some kind of crazy new upgrade and a totally different car. I'm like, that's not what we want to do. That's not the smart way to do this. I understand everyone's kind of like on fire and wants to see results, but I like that they came out and said, we're going to do this strategically. We're going to think about this, back to the drawing board. We're sorry we've disappointed you. And then I also like that even though they were coming out, not apologizing, but acknowledging, their screw ups and this whole PR safety car, but they also took the chance to be like, hey fans, we love you. Let's also not be jerks when providing feedback, and that this is a safe space and you don't need to come after anyone and you don't need to be like yelling at anyone, because if you're a real fan, like you love your team and there's like an extent that you can be upset, but remember that these are real people and, it's you screaming on a tweet saying very not nice things to other fans, to engineers, to the admin who's looking at the account. Maybe not the most constructive way to get things done and not the best way to be establishing a positive reputation for a fan base.
Right. And especially a fan base, at least the Lewis Hamilton side of the fan base, I think we all are very acutely aware of how Lewis is treated and how other fans treat Lewis. So I definitely don't want the Mercedes fan base putting that out in the world. Particularly at people, like the people who are on Twitter and the Mercedes organization are not the people who are making ultimate decisions. Whether that's the admin, as you're saying, or it's just the engineer who works back on the factory and has like one like small part of this giant project that they're all working on. Like, if you do want to direct some frustration somewhere, well, one, I would say boxing, really fun sport. Like, go get some Anchor app. Really helpful. But also, like, direct it more collectively. And there's a way to frame things in an accusatory manner versus we're going to get back to, like, small children I statements, right? Like, I'm upset that the car is not fast and Lewis is not in a position to win, right? Versus, how dare you put Lewis in that situation, right? Right? Lessons learning. No, I'm not trying to be like a condescending asshole with this, but I do think collectively as a fandom, it's like good to talk about those things, and it's really good that Mercedes is talking about those things. I'm sure they're doing lots of blocking, which is great and helpful, but we can be better. We as a world can be better, and it's upsetting that we're not. But I want to just mention briefly the other side of this. I think F1 does, not the sport, I think F1 fandoms do a ton of policing about the right or wrong way to be a fan, or how much should you or shouldn't you care. And I just want, as someone who didn't get a world championship as a Philadelphia Eagles fan until adult life, losing and being sad about losing is such an important part of fandom. And you actually create so many bonds over that with people, and like be upset, and don't let anyone tell you that you're not allowed to be upset. Like, being a sports fan is so emotional, and that's good. That's because we have passion for it, and that's why it's so fun. So, like, be emotional, but just make sure you're not directing it in a way that's harmful for someone. But, like, oh my gosh, start a Mercedes group chat. Come, like, chat with us in our DMs. Like, I would sit there and, like, rant with you for hours about how sad I am that, like, Lewis can't fight for a championship this season. Like, I know that they would, like, Nicole would do the same. Like, come, like, at least we're here for, like, a venting space, and, like, this is going to be a very long bonding experience.
And we unfortunately have experience with that. But yeah, there's nothing that makes you appreciate when your team is having any sort of bit of success than when you had to sit there and suffer through not success. It
still hurts. It hurts every time.
Every time. And it always hurts more than the good feels. Like, there's an unbelievable, not good balance there. But within this whole lengthy letter, it didn't necessarily seem like it was overall panic. Like, Mercedes was not like, it's done. They weren't saying George's quotes of, like, Red Bull's won, we're done, we can go take a nap now, which is not exactly what he said. I am paraphrasing, of course. I think it was a PR safety car. It was a damage control. It was we need to regroup, go back to the drawing board of how we need to be communicating the current status of our car, and as it continues to perform, in whatever way it does, they needed to regroup on how to do that. But it did not seem like they were waving the white flag and that every single piece of hope has been lost, whether that's for this season or in general. Either way, not all hope has been lost. Yeah.
So I can throw in some general hope, copium to this whole thing, but, like, let's talk about some facts and some things that we know are fundamentally true. The Aston stuff hurts, but if we think about it, even though the Aston Martin team is getting so much investment from Lawrence Stroll right now, they are still not the full operation that Mercedes is. So I think that Mercedes has now identified that they're on the wrong track. They've identified that the goals they set for themselves were not high enough. Those are positives. And taking the entire might that is the Mercedes team, that I believe is still there, it hasn't disappeared in 2 years. Like, they are still, there's a reason. Remember, we're still talking about the third or fourth best team in F1. Most teams would be dying to be in this position, all relative. But if they put their entire might, engineering might, behind the right direction, instead of the direction they've been going for the last year and a half, 2 years in this direction, you're telling me you don't think they could make a similar, if not greater, jump than Aston did? And they weren't coming from 7th to 3rd, like Aston did. They're going to go from 3rd to competing with Red Bull. So I do believe that this season will be different So last season was pure panic and damage control. Like, it was an entire season of a PR safety car. Like, wow, we got this so wrong, but we don't know how. We're now at a point where Mercedes knows how they got it wrong multiple times. And theoretically, what we should see for the rest of the year is every upgrade they bring, even if it doesn't necessarily bring them closer to Red Bull, it's all going to be communicated to us under whatever direction they're going and how this is informing that. I will also point out that most tracks are not Bahrain. I think it is so incredibly likely that we're going to get to Jeddah this weekend, and Mercedes is not going to be all doom and gloom, and they're going to have a much better overall performance, even if they finish the race in the same places, and then everyone's going to stop panicking. But we are getting upgrades this weekend already. They were pre-planned upgrades, but still upgrades. So, there's good. There's a good direction. Everything's good. Everything's awful, but could be good.
Just do something. I say positively, kindly, and say please. And not like everyone else that's like, well, then just do it. Hi, please do the thing that makes you go so fast. Thanks.
And it's going to be a while. And I think it's going to be interesting if they bring like a big beast back. So I'm going to throw out a wild theory here. If you, wait, where's the hope alarm? Here.
I'll go.
Okay. So, you're going to probably click that a lot in what I'm about to say. But if you want to be like super hopeful, again, going back to, this is all a PR strategy. What Mercedes was doing in Bahrain, those quotes were the wrong, but still were a strategy to set expectations lower, to underplay things. It's apparently Mercedes' alleged Imola upgrade is supposed to be a relative, I don't want to call it a full B spec, but a pretty decent evolution of this car, and it's supposed to look significantly different. So, if you want to hold on to hope for 6 more weeks, or 4 more race weeks, whatever it is, you can hope and pretend that maybe that is a B spec car, and that Mercedes already knew that they were in the wrong direction, like McLaren, and that's just a completely new car we're going to get in Imola. So, that's the option if you want to, be delusional for a couple weeks, and that sounds fun. I might live in that space.
I just want to stop having Mercedes and McLaren in the same sentence. That's it. Because I cannot. No more. No. Because it is such a similar, not sandbagging PR type thing that I see that we're doing, and we'd seen it coming with McLaren, and then when we're like, is Mercedes doing the same thing? And I'm like, please, I don't want you to do that. But we'll live with your hope. I'll live in your hope. So we want to give a big thank you, as always, to Voiceover Man. Shout out to Unlimited Drink Packages Royal Caribbean, you're the bomb, and our 4-legged executive producers. Make sure you turn on auto downloads wherever you are listening to the pod. Leave us a rating. Please leave us a review. It really, really helps us out. Shout out to all of our friends on Apple Podcasts where you're listening. Pretty please let us know what you think, what you like, what you'd like to see us try out. We really, really appreciate the feedback. Make sure you follow us on any of the social media platforms that you like to use. We are at Gridwalk Show, absolutely everywhere, and we are always giving you some daily grid walks. But we will be back every Thursday, and we seriously hope that you join us. Today felt like we just completely missed the grid walk because we were just too busy spilling tea the